Today, we explore how life-altering challenges can redefine not just who we are, but how we approach our careers. And imagine facing a setback so profound that it changes every aspect of your life, like becoming a paraplegic, and then a walking paraplegic. Through determination, adaptability, and grit, such challenges can often open unexpected doors to new paths and purposes. And in this episode, in this interview with Erica Sosna, a true walking paraplegic, we share insights on how resilience in the face of adversity can transform limitations into opportunities in creating a career and a life that's, wow, more meaningful than ever imagined. So you don't want to miss today. Stay tuned. This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media and HalftimeSuccess.com, offering resources and insights for those at mid-career or the halftime of life. Explore our diverse categories, including courses, coaching, health, music, software, and travel. We're here to help you make this stage of life your best ever. So get our new articles, downloads, and podcasts by signing up for weekly updates at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, I'm very excited to have Erica Sosna with us today. She is across the pond, as we just spoke. So you have a beautiful, I call it an accent. You probably call what I have an accent.
Indeed.
But we have, yes. But we have a really interesting topic today of how life-altering challenges can redefine your career. And you're talking about this from being a walking paraplegic. And I like my guests to introduce themselves, their background, and really we kind of probably know what led you to talk what you're talking about. But I want you to let our audience in on what some of your background was and why you are where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much, and lovely to be here with you, Deborah. So my name's Erica Sosna. I am a speaker, thought leader within the world of work. So I run a careers consultancy called Career Matters. And a couple of years ago, in 2 days' time, I was involved in an accident that left me paralyzed from the waist down. Having spent my working life helping people deal with career transitions and life-changing moments, I found myself in one of those and have been exploring what that looks and feels like on the other side ever since, I guess.
Wow. And you have a young child, so you have a lot to balance with that. And there's many of us that complain when we get a cold or, a bit of the flu. And you've had a huge change. How did that immediately change things for you with your business? What were you facing? Like, were you going, oh, life is over? Or how did you do some self-talk there? First of all, and before we get into, how you've kind of integrated them into your life, your business life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, pretty much immediately I realized that I wasn't going to be able to go home or go back to the life that I had. Like, even under the car, I was thinking, this is bad. But until I sort of got into hospital and had surgery and everything, I wasn't exactly clear where I would end up and what my recovery would look like. And one of the things that's really tricky about spinal cord injuries, I guess is true with any life-changing experience, is kind of like, where am I going to end up? And with spinal cord, no one will tell you, because every injury is very unique. So whereas you might get a prognosis for cancer or for a broken bone where you can relatively, lean into the solidity of the expectation. In a spinal cord injury, you can't. So they'll always go with worst case scenario, which is you'll probably never walk again. And then you'll see from there. So yeah, I remember sort of texting from hospital, my team going, think we're going to have a slightly different Christmas than we planned. And I'm going to really need your help to just keep this show on the road. And I wasn't sure whether they'd be up for that challenge. And they did do an amazing job of helping us stay in business. But it was a good year, basically. It was a good year before I really felt able to cope with anything beyond surviving the injury.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a major injury. And to be able to have a team, sometimes when you have a team around you like that and they see how much you need, they really step up. And surprised about human nature in that. And it's a wonderful thing to see. I see it all around me where people have, whether it's with somebody that's homeless or they need a place, they need something particular in their life. Young moms who have nothing and decided to have their baby and they need everything. And people step up. They just step up. They have a heart. And so how wonderful that you had a team that did step up. So how have you now, because your business has changed slightly, right? Career masters, it's still there, it's career matters, but how have your accident and your all of your injuries, have you integrated that now in your business and in your life? I mean, your everyday life has changed. And what type of work did you personally have to do? You talk about being a walking paraplegic. I mean, you had to gain some mobility. What did you do? What did you? That sounds like hard. That sounds like really hard.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Like as kind of life goals go. I mean, I always feel like it's important to preface with a little bit of education about spinal cords because people could hear my story and they might think they experienced someone else in a wheelchair with a spinal cord injury and start thinking, oh, it's because you didn't try as hard as Erica or you didn't try this. And I just want to really clarify that in the spinal cord world, you have an injury that's called complete, which means you have no feeling or connection between the place you were injured and anywhere below it. And incomplete, which means you do have some level of what they call sparing of the nerves between the injured site and below. If you were the former, then no amount of rehab will make a tangible difference right now. We're still waiting for the kind of evolutions of technology to support people to walk again if they have a complete injury. If you are incomplete, you don't know where you're going to end up, but there is some possibility. And of incomplete injuries, about 50% of us do walk. So that's kind of important because I know what I did was impressive, but I also know that there is a context that people could use against people that I would hate them to do because that's just wrong. So, but having said that, I did throw everything at it. Always been someone who likes new things, who is interested in the kind of deep dive and research phase, the discovery phase in anything new. And in this case, I made this my project and my study. What works? What is a spinal cord injury? How have people recovered? How have they made lives for themselves? What are the choices available to me? And I've always, until I had the accident, bar having my son, I hadn't really spent much time involved in the medical model at all in anything in my life. I just had been fortunate enough to not spend much time either needing long-term medication or being in hospital. So this was really my first experience of, I spent 4 months in hospital and the first couple of months I could do absolutely nothing for myself, really.
Wow.
So it was quite, I guess I say that because of that, I've always been very interested in kind of alternative health and alternative ways of defining wellness. And my experience was that the medical profession were amazing at saving my life and sparing my legs, but they weren't that good at kind of what happened afterwards. So I accessed a lot of different things, from more traditional neurological physios and stimulations of various kinds to sort of try and reignite the system, hydrotherapy, but also things like acupuncture, a kind of gentle chiropractic alignment called McTimony, which I found very helpful, and something called frequency-specific microcurrents, which is a sort of 150-year-old process of sending electrical current through the body to help it recover.
Wow.
So I did all those things, and I also did like visualization. I prayed a lot. I mean,
yes.
but it's I feel like last year I spent almost all of my time either going to classes or rehab or recovering from that. And I felt like I missed out a lot on just a kind of day-to-day of family life outside the home. I wasn't too bad in the home, but outside of the home, I just couldn't really manage for long. So yeah, it kept me pretty busy, and has only really started to slow down now that I walk without sticks some of the time. Wow. I've sort of given myself permission to slow down a little bit the level of attention that went to, if I can get better, I should get as better as I can, as quickly as I can.
Yes. So I hear you saying you did a lot of education, first of all, and you tried a lot of alternative, medication and, from acupuncture to everything that we think of as, we don't normally just go to the doctor for that. We have to, look at other things, massage therapy, all of those things are a part of it. Massage therapy even does working with PTSD. And there's a lot of things now that massage therapy can do with specific injuries. And so that you pursued a lot of those, but you've educated yourself as well. Now, during this time, you still had your company. Is that correct? That you kept?
I did, and
going?
I still do.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a big deal to keep all of that on, to keep balancing, and, to walk with sticks and then sometimes without, which are, of course, the crutches. So it's, or even a walking stick. So that makes such a difference for you. So your personal and professional life have changed. You did the education, but how has it changed now? Because you do have a son and you're balancing business. How are you balancing all of your life now? Does your body get really, really tired? Are you able to still have your energy? What happens when you are in that situation?
Yeah. So, I guess, work-wise, I feel quite fortunate because I've been able largely to return to the work that I was doing previously. And in a lot of cases with an injury or a life-changing event, it doesn't feel possible to return. So that's a whole other sphere of life that you then have to navigate and make choices on and be in a different realm around and go on a hero's journey around. And I was quite grateful that that wasn't the case. I already like my work. My team and also my clients and friends were incredibly supportive and helpful with keeping things going. And my injury didn't stop me being able to do the work I had done. So that was great, because work is often, like, for me, it has often been a solace. So I can be in a very disordered or dysregulated state of mind. And then I go to my work and I think about whatever I've got to do next, write a proposal or prepare for a keynote, or I don't know, even just post something on LinkedIn. And immediately that I'm sort of in service of a greater goal than myself, I feel better. I'll go and do that thing for an hour, and then I'll come back out and feel better regulate than I was before. So for me, like, work has been a great solace and a place where I'm like, I do have capacity. I can do things, because a lot of my injury was suddenly becoming very incapacitated. And I'm sure anyone who's listened to this who, you know, permanently or temporarily, whether it's a hard pregnancy or your chemo treatment or grief, right? Things stop you from living the independent and private adult life that you live. It's really, really hard psychologically. So I was very grateful to have that. And inevitably, my work life has changed. So I do walk, and people see that I couldn't, and that I went from a wheelchair to like a rollator, like a Zimmer frame, and then to crutches, and then to sticks, and they see that I'm walking and they will cheer me on, and, you know, and of course that's something to celebrate, but I'm still a paraplegic. I will always be a paraplegic. And what that means is that everything below my waist has been impacted. So it's not just what you can see, it's also what you cannot see. You know, my digestion, my, you know, bladder and bowels, all sorts of things work differently. And therefore, they are a cause of anxiety, they are a cause of uncertainty. And it's, you know, it can be really difficult to kind of navigate some of those things. Also, just everything takes longer. You know, whereas I live just outside of London and the seaside in Brighton, and I grew up in London, it's my hometown. So but whereas before I would just hop on a train or just hop on a plane, pop over to New York to see some clients, whatever, there's no just anymore. Everything takes a really long time, and my maximum speed is my walking speed. I can't pick up speed. It only goes downhill from my maximum speed. So the kind of preparation and the kind of emotional stakes and just the physicality of getting around is way, 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 way different. So that means that if a client does want me to fly somewhere for work, I'm going to give it really careful consideration about whether that is the right thing for me. Whereas before I'd be like, I'd be delighted. I'd love to go on adventures. So I feel like that's what, you know, that's one of my losses, is that's kind of a spontaneity of kind of exploring environments, or, you know, just wandering around London to see the lights at Christmas. Those things are fraught with difficulty rather than pleasure and ease. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And I think the other thing, and I'm sure this is also true for other life-changing events, is how much do you tell?
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know, and who do you tell? Like, you know, I work in a virtual realm. If you haven't met me in person or followed my story, you might not know that this has happened to me. You know, to what extent does it feel important to disclose that, and when and how, and to what end? That I think is all quite complicated. And I'm not returning to an organization that, you know, but if I were, one of the things that I would encourage people to just remember is to have those check-in conversations about, you know, how are you doing? Where is work sitting within the context of your life right now? How can we help? What do we need to know that wouldn't be obvious to us because we're not you, you know?
Right.
Asking those questions, but also not being patronizing. It's really hard, you know?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, people say things they really mean well, but they'll say things like, don't fall over. You're like, I spent trying hard not to fall over, but thank you for the suggestion. Also, I will fall over. Maybe not today, maybe not now. I remember when I first relearned how to ride my bike, I would fall over stationary. So I'd be all right riding, but then I'd stop, and my feet wouldn't be able to use the muscles to touch the ground the way I needed to, and I just with my bike on top of me in slow motion, which was like particularly embarrassing because most people don't fall off their bikes when they're on their bikes. They fall when they're
heavy.
Cycling, they're scared.
Yes. And those bikes are heavy.
And they're really heavy, yeah. And then also I'm partially paralyzed, so I can't get up.
Yeah, you can't lift it. You can't get up.
So yeah, you know,
goodness.
yeah, I will definitely try not to fall over, but thanks for the tip.
Yes. That has to be incredibly humbling.
I mean, it's just been so many things that are like that are just like incredibly embarrassing and awkward. And yeah, that my ego really didn't
Yeah.
like.
You know, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to talk about, some people are just, I mean, there's a mindset in getting older and not being able to do everything that you used
Sure,
to.
yeah.
And boy, nothing compared by, what you have been going through. My goodness. Yeah, interesting. So,
but it's similar. And kind of the vanity aspects as well of like, what do you mean I've got like wrinkles and, my neck's what it was? Like
yes.
that's sort of different, similar in an injury as well. Like I broke 15 bones. My back was broken and it had to be fused back together. And in the surviving of that trauma, my body has made some modifications that I'm not that keen on as a woman who used to have an hourglass figure and, like her heels or whatever. All of those things are like completely changed. There's obviously no way I can wear a heel without falling over. Again, I did try that with my physio the other day. And I was like Bambi, it's just as well she was holding me because as soon as we stood me up, I just fell, So like there are all these, these beautiful shoes looking at me in the cupboard that I'll probably never ever be able to wear again. Clothes that fitted a body with different shapes, and I think those things are like particularly hard on a woman,
Yes. Yes.
Especially when sometimes your presentation is kind of integral to the work you do. In some environments, you're more like constrained by the uniform or whatever, But in my realm, like it often matters how you look, and that's quite annoying. Now,
yeah. What a great message, though, to all of us, especially as women. But men too. Oh my goodness. I'm married to a former professional athlete and body doesn't do everything it used to do. And he gets very frustrated.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other former professional athletes, the same thing, who their knees have gone out. I have a daughter-in-law like that. And it's frustrating. She still has the same drive. You have the same drive. You have the same wanting to, I'd love to wear those shoes. It's just, I could have gotten in that dress before. I don't know what's wrong now. I mean, some of us feel that way and we've not gone through an accident. It just doesn't look the same. I don't know. It's kind of all shifted. So, anyway, but those are real mindsets and things that we all face. And so I'm glad you touched on those because that's a normal thing. And you have had it magnified, just absolutely magnified. And all of a sudden, I mean, it wasn't anything that you've gradually gotten less, of being able to maybe less mobile or something. It just totally happened.
Yeah.
So what type of shifts do you typically see in others now, who have some sort of a life challenging experience? Now, it could be a life challenging experience. First of all, define what a life challenging, I think most listeners would be able to say, they could define maybe a couple of them that could be, but what you spend just a tiny bit, define some of those, and then what kind of shifts do you see?
Yeah. So I think a life-changing experience is something where there is a before and an after, a BC and an AD.
Oh, I like that.
So, whether that is becoming a parent, health implications, loss and grief. Those are kind of the main frontiers. They're generally like health, new life, loss. Those are kind of the big obvious ones. But of course, people might also, for example, in the context that I work in, which is around work and careers, they might be returning after caring for a family member. They might be coming back after a burnout. They may be experiencing like bankruptcy and financial hardship and building back up from that. So it tends to be something that you define by before that happened, I was this way or life was this way. And after that happened, it changed me. And that people tend to have a kind of a specific moment, maybe a specific date, but not necessarily, but a specific moment at which they kind of realized that life was going to be different. And that might have been an enormous shock, or they might have known it was coming, but it's still very upsetting. So those moments that define us, I guess I would say.
Wow. And I love that, the before and the after, because sometimes it feels like it's like a gradual thing, but then when you're on, you're looking at it from hindsight, which is always 2020, you can see the before and you can see the after. And I like that you mentioned a couple of those other situational things like caring for a parent. There's a lot that are in that middle area that are caring. Maybe they've chosen to have kids a little bit later. They're caring for their kids and could be young kids. And then they're caring for aging parents. And then it's different. Sometimes they're moving in with parents or have their parents move in with them. So there's just changes. And then they have all of this. They're still working because they have to work. So there's all of these changes and you wonder, okay, is my life going to ever have any sort of sense of normalcy again? And you felt that same way, like all of a sudden because of your injury. But many people, they may come upon us more gradually, but all of a sudden they're feeling the same feelings that you are. And those are pretty kind of life altering as well. So, how do you redefine any sort of focus at this stage? I mean, what are the mindsets? Whether it's a career focus, it's a life focus. It could be an accident, an injury. It could be anything else. How do you help people through that process?
I was given what I thought was a really great bit of advice early in my life from a teacher of mine, a personal development teacher, who taught me to allow for the question when something difficult happens. What if this is for me? Which sounds like a really weird thing to ask yourself when you're under a car, or you've lost someone that you loved, or the work that you loved has been pulled from you, or you've been involved in a catastrophe, or all manner of the hardships and sufferings that are part of life. But the purpose of the question is not to sort of justify and reason yourself out of something terrible that's happened.
Yeah, it's
just that it has happened. So the only control that you have now is how you respond to that thing.
Wow.
And what if this is for me is so far out of where you would normally go.
Yes.
That it sort of enters you into a different kind of curiosity about what's happening. And my observation, this is very anecdotal, I've done no special research on it, but my observation of how people deal with trauma and grief and ill health and the worst that has happened is it very much depends on your mindset and on your coping style.
Yes.
But finding your something to live for.
Yes.
And finding your way through that creates a sense of, I may not know what the meaning is in this, but somehow it is what it is. It has happened. And I'm going to find a way to integrate it into my narrative or to build it out into the world that means that the thing wasn't in vain. Like that kind of people who adopt that tend to have a greater sense of agency about what's happening in their life. And that doesn't mean that the terrible thing that happened wasn't terrible, and that isn't what I'm saying.
Right.
But what I am saying is that if I choose to use it for my growth, I'm not using it against me. And do I do that 100% of the time? Of course not. Like, do I have my moments where I feel frustrated and victimized and, certainly not at peace with where I'm at? I do, but mostly it's circumstantial. It's not that I'm paraplegic. It's not that I was caught under a car. Terrible things happen to people every day. Why shouldn't it be me that it happens to? Yeah. It's more like the frustration of that particular moment that I'm on the beach and I've been left behind because everyone else has gone out to play in the waves and I can't do that, or that kind of a thing. So and generally speaking, I find in my coaching practice that the more that we feel like we have agency in life, the happier we are. So when I'm on hold to the bank for 45 minutes, trying to just do a 30-second transaction, and they keep asking for my details, I get more and more and more agitated.
I know.
Sitting by, I've got a parent of a young child. I don't have much time. I'm injured. So sitting still and being tense is quite more difficult for me than it is for most people. And anyway, it's just horrible to have your time wasted. We're supposed to live in the digital age, but and those kinds of things leave me very that's a powerless situation for me. I get super aggro in that kind of, so that's just the bank, right? So I know that if I get that aggro with the bank, if I allow myself to go into I'm powerless around this injury or the economic climate around my business or whatever, it could be catastrophic for me because I get that annoyed just by the bank.
Yes.
So yeah, that's me. I get really riled by like being kept on hold. Consider how much damage you could do to yourself and to your world if it was 100 times more serious and you were feeling victimized by it. And that for me was kind of a good housekeeping rule for how I engage with myself around this, right? It's like, I'm going to have to go for what if this is for me? I'm going to have to go for how can I grow from this? I'm going to go for let's just see what's possible. Because I'm not going to cope if I don't do that.
Wow. What great words. Let's just see what's possible. That's great. What a great mindset. Because, you can sit in that mire and in the, the dirt forever. And what if this is for me? I mean, there's a great song out of, if it doesn't kill you, it's going to make you stronger.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote a song called The Hero Inside, and there's a line in it, standing in the food line, humbled to the core, not doing what you've worked so hard for. Well, what do you do during those times? And it's why I speak on that. There's that strength within every single person, but it's a mindset. It's what you have to decide to do and to be able to pick yourself up and move on. And, let's see what's possible. That's a great mindset. And I could totally understand and identify with waiting on, having to be on hold forever. And I hate wasting time. I get really aggravated. I did, too. And I'm not a paraplegic. I hate to sit still too long. I have a hard time, I'm always moving. And so for me, it's like, why are you wasting my time? Yeah. So, or else you're on hold and you hear that same song going over and over. You keep turning.
I know. Sometimes I sing it back to them. Okay.
Yes.
I'll give you 30 seconds of.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yes, I know. Yeah, those are especially bad for somebody in the music field. So you've talked about some of these things that what it's taught you, your injury has taught you, and what maybe some of the mindset shifts. Why don't you talk about maybe because you talked about let's see what's possible. Okay, how do you go about that mindset? Sort of shifts. Is there something you do every day that's helpful for you? Because every day you have a challenge of getting up. I can't imagine of sleeping at night. Now, all of a sudden, do your legs work? Are you going to be able? What do you do in the morning? It takes you a long time to get up. What sort of mindsets do you have every day? And these are readily, even the principles that you would share, I think people can readily identify with some of those mindsets because some people just have a hard time getting up in the morning, period. So, but what sort of mindset shifts have really helped you, and how can you help others through maybe some of their own mindset shifts?
Yeah. I mean, for me, being able to get out of bed, being able to stand under a shower without needing to sit down or have someone wash me, being able to dress myself are causes for great joy because I couldn't do them. Like, I can do this now. Let's show you because you're on video. Here I am. Here I am. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I can stand up and sit down almost like you can. But it's taken me 2 years to do that.
Wow.
So even like rolling out of bed is like, woohoo, I got out a little bit faster than I did. So I think like the first thing is, just like track the micro progress in anything that you're trying to move forward in. I mean, I'm talking specifically in relation to injury, but I think it's true with anything. Have something simple that you can track. So for me, there's literally an exercise called sit to stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't go from sitting to stand. I couldn't move everything that it took to do that movement that you do without thinking. And so I think, tracking micro things is really important, and sort of celebrating your movements forward, whatever that looks like. I managed, 5 minutes. I managed 10 minutes. I managed to stay present. I managed to, whatever those things are. Like for me, it was like I managed to stand up long enough to make a cup of tea without hurting myself.
Wow.
I think the second thing is, and I know this is like really cheesy and everybody says it, but it really does work for me, is like being grateful. I mean, that sort of harnesses off the same thing, right?
Right. It does.
Like, I do find that, and it wasn't something I did that much before. I was like intellectually grateful, but like now I find it actually works to go, okay, what am I grateful for? And the rundown of kind of, I am alive. I am still me. I have this great kid. I have a wonderful partner. I have great friends. I'm lucky enough to have a home that I really enjoy and that I'm safe in. I don't live in a war zone. I have a British passport. Once you start going, you discover how lucky you are. And that really works,
Wow.
is yes, I have some odds stacked against me. Yes, particularly when I was in pain a lot of the time. And I think chronic pain is probably really one of the most challenging places to move through. But gratitude really helped me. It felt like there was bounty on my side rather than a desert, that was really helpful. I think, you talk about the hero inside, and I'm a big fan of the hero's journey as a kind of model for understanding what's happening in your life. And that was really useful for me in this experience because, you get called to do something. It's a push or a pull. In this case, it was a push. I got hurt, and accepting the challenge as though I chose it, even though you might be quite reluctant. That's sort of classic aspect of a hero's journey. But eventually sort of choosing into it gave me a lot of hope and freedom. And I knew where to focus my time, where the books I was reading, the forums I was on, the videos I was watching, the people I was consulting, the journals I was reading, all of that was focused on how can I get back on my feet? Is it possible to get back on your feet? What does it look like when you're back on your feet? That was all that and I'm a big believer in the idea that where you look is where you go, which is why the hero's journey is so important, because it defines a quest. You define something that you want to move towards, and then you focus your intention on that direction. And lots of kind of transformation work these days talks about that focused intention, but sometimes the intention is forced on you. Like you didn't want to do that thing.
Right,
Your kid got really ill. You didn't want to be in that situation. You divorced a, abusive partner. You didn't want to be in that situation. You lost a career you loved. Like you didn't want to be there. So it can, even from that point of choice. So what are you going to do about it? And then after the sort of process of beginning the quest, there's what Campbell calls the belly of the whale, which is the point where you're too far gone to just forget about it and pretend that you weren't going to do it. But you're so far forward that all you can see is more trial and tribulation. And you think, this is terrible. I'm never going to get anywhere. This is, and heading towards what he calls like the grand trial, the supreme ordeal. And so it was really helpful for me to know in those hard times, and the times would go up and down, up and down. I'd feel quite buoyant. I'd feel really terrible. I'm never going to get there. It's so painful. I hate my life, all of that, you know. And then a few days later, I'd be up again and sort of, so that kind of oscillated. But then knowing that out the other side is this place of the return, which is I return to my community transformed by my experience, and I hold a light for other people who might be going through something similar. Knowing that map and working with that map long before the injury really helps me in the injury.
Yes. Yes.
Because I knew where I was. And so I, you know, if you are going through something really challenging, and equally if you're going through something really exciting, the map is the same. You know, are you in resistance to making the change? Have you accepted and you're ready to begin? Have you committed? Are you in the quest, the work, the heart of the work? Are you thinking this is sucky, it was a terrible idea? That's good. That means you're nearly there. When you get to that point, that's not the point to give up, because it means you're nearly there. And then, or are you in the return, and have you taken time to consolidate and celebrate and recognize all that you've become, you know, and all that you have to share? And I'm not sure, you know, how much it's changed me. It'd kind of be interesting to do a little short survey on the people who know me best. But I would say that although I'm thinner skinned because I have a nerve injury, and so I do become more agitated more easily, it's just, I just haven't an agitated nervous system now, that I'm more patient. I understand what endurance takes, and that endurance takes time. And so I am much more patient. And also, I think, how do I want to say this? I think, just give me a second. I've lost my thread and I'd like to say what I want to say.
No problem.
Interesting. Okay, it's not like me.
Yeah. Oh, it'll come to you.
How have I changed?
Yes.
I have become more, oh, that's it. And I've become more patient, and I've learned how to be uncomfortable.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, which has been massive for me, Deborah, because I still really like being comfy and cozy. Don't get me wrong. I love a good cozy cashmere sock. I love a nice blanket. But I think before in my life, I avoided discomfort, and I made various choices based on the avoidance of being uncomfortable. I think the injury taught me how to be very, very, very uncomfortable and just sit with discomfort. And because of that, I'm more aware of when I make decisions based on being uncomfortable and wanting to get out of that. Yeah, that kind of, you know, flight, really.
Yes.
It doesn't stop me always making those decisions, but I'm much more aware that I'm doing it, which is good progress.
Right.
And that I'm much more willing to sit in, I don't know.
Yep.
Whereas before I would have kind of charged on, or I might have pretended that I did know, or, you know, or I'd try and get someone else to decide for me because I like the certainty. You know, this injury is all about uncertainty, and it's all about tolerating discomfort with no idea when or how it will end or if it will come back.
Right, right.
And I think that's been quite good for me. I think that's sort of
well, that's great.
Building.
Yeah, great kind of a self-evaluation there too, and reflectiveness. We all need to do that. So very, very important. And so for you, as we start winding this up, so what a great conversation. Oh my goodness. There's probably, I would hope, some people really hanging on every word, and just because they've not gone through maybe a traumatic injury like you, but they've faced some of those changes to where they have to change their mindsets. So, but what's the next steps for you in your career? Because you have kept your business going, and I'm going to let you or encourage you to give that information. And everything will be in the show notes as well, so people can contact you. But what are the next steps for your career?
So I mean, Career Matters, the consultancy is still going strong. We advise transformatory firms about how to use the career equation, my model, to get clarity about what people want out of their careers and to co-design that future together. So that's kind of still going on. But I think a few things sort of shifted for me post-accident, that I wanted to work more with the public. Again, to work, a lot with the public, and focusing on the consulting reduced that for a few years. And so launching the podcast, The Career Equation, which we did a few months ago with my colleague Zoe, and also starting to kind of bring together under the Career Equation programs and products and free sessions that allowed people to just get this education for themselves about how to design their career intentionally and how to have the sort of toolkit to be able to make informed decisions about their career. I really wanted to make sure that got to as many people as possible. And I think the sort of next stage on that is really about moving into this phase of kind of commentary, advocacy, and teaching. So whereas I've, done a lot of workshop delivery, I've done a lot of events and a lot of one-to-one coaching and all of that. While I still love all of that, I feel like there's this kind of level opening up about being able to advocate for some of the key ideas that I've worked on within the sort of education and transformation and employment realms, and supporting people who are doing great work in those fields, but also training people to use this method, the equation method, whether they're coaches or parents or teachers or mentors or business leaders, to really help people have this clarity about how you navigate the 21st century world of work. So I feel excited about the opportunity to be more in the kind of broadcasting and sharing space rather than in the thick of it, or even in the realm of considering myself an entrepreneur. I'd say that, I feel like that's kind of moving slightly out, and something different is moving in, that is more about the fact that I'm really good at using words to shape people's experience. And I'll always do that, but maybe I'm going to do that on a slightly different platform, a slightly different way. And that feels exciting. So yeah, we'll see what that brings.
How fun, because I encourage people to do that. Look at your experience, look at your skills, and you're still going to do many of the same sort of basic principles because of those skills, but you can do it in a different way. So that's exciting. You're going to, do that exact same thing. There's a certain amount of risk, but it's exciting and moving ahead. So before I have you give everybody your information, what is one takeaway? If you were going to give one takeaway today, for those that are listening, they're saying, oh, this was just so good. Boy, there's so many parts of this I could I need to go back and listen to. But what's one takeaway that they can remember just as they end the podcast?
Well, I am in midlife, right? I'm 46. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely feeling the squeeze that you described, with or without the injury. I observe that certainly the women around me are dividing their pie really thin, between work and home and health and family and kids and, so many things, social commitments. And it is squeezy, and according to the data, by the time that I hit 50, it will all start to improve.
Right.
So if you're listening to this and you're going, oh my God, I can't remember the last time I had some ease, I'm in there with you and I'm holding on to the fact,
good.
That there is actually a demographic dip for women in midlife. I'm not sure that on the day that you turn 50, everything is suddenly perfect, but why not? So I think that sort of recognizing that things have seasons and to them.
Yes.
And that for me has been helpful, that, the things that I wanted in the person that I am is not the same as I was 15 years ago or 30 years ago. And that sort of working that out and creating the time and space to reevaluate. So what do I mean when I talk about success? What do I mean when I talk about, fulfillment in my life? And, you don't need to use the equation to do that. That's just one of many ways, but finding the nourishing ways to really take time to go, how do I nurture who I am right now and what's most important to me? I think it becomes even more crucial when the time to do it is limited. So make sure there's a slice in your pie that's just for reflecting, nourishing, and taking care of you.
Wonderful. Great words of advice. Yes, I mean, seasons, I love that because we all go through different seasons. And again, hindsight's 2020. We look back and we think, wow, I say that often, that you can see the journey, as you've been going, and such a great mindset there. And the focus on gratefulness, on thankfulness, and on seeing where you've come and celebrating the little tiny steps. So, well, how can people contact you best? And then that'll all be in the show notes too. But just give that sort of information, and so people that are listening can hear.
Yeah, thank you. So the best way to contact me personally is on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. My surname is, so it's Erica, and it's Sosna, Sosna. Send me a connection request. Tell me about you. I'm, love making connections with people all over the world. If you want to find out more about what we do or check out the podcast, thecareerequation.com is probably like the best place to start. And there are a couple of books that I've written, Your Career Plan and The Career Equation, which you can download free chapters from on those, but they're also available wherever you get your secondhand books.
Yes,
good. So yeah, those are also, great ways to find out a bit more about what we're up to and how you might engage with it if you'd like to.
Good. Boy, I tell you, if you've listened to these podcasts, there's never a shortage of all of the wonderful books that are available. Keep everybody reading. So thank you so much. Thank you, Erica, for being with us today. It was just really delightful. Your topic was very engaging. And also for all of those of you who have kept listening all the way through, thank you for doing that. Always appreciate it. And make sure you continue connecting with us. And we also have a Women at Halftime a group that I post the newest podcasts and announcements on Facebook. So there's a group you can ask to be joined to that, and you can get our weekly updates, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter and halftimesuccess.com. So thank you all again and I will look forward. I love this. I will look forward to being with all of you listeners again next time. So bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.